Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today for the FARMID final conference on the employment of people with mild intellectual disability on farms. My name is Juliette Olivier and I'm a project officer at the European Landowners organization based in Brussels. So the purpose of this online event is to present you the results of our project FARMID, which has been funded by the Erasmus Plus program of the European Commission. So during this 30-month project, we developed various materials which will be presented in the following parts. So first, I wanted to underline some technical aspects regarding the webinar. So you have all joined this webinar in listen-only mode, which means you are muted during this webinar. You can find the agenda in the handouts section. To make this event as participatory as possible, I want to encourage you to ask questions in the question box. So we're glad to have several guests today to help us talk about social farming and the employment of people with mild intellectual disability on farms. So I would like to introduce our first speaker, who is Peter Svetina, the Human Rights Ombudsman of the Republic of Slovenia, to give us some introductory remarks. So Peter, the floor is yours. Peter, I think you are muted.
Hello. Now I'm unmuted from the organizer, but I don't think you can see me because all the webcam spaces. Okay, now I'm on. No? All the webcam spaces are full. Obviously. Second.
Have you turned your camera on? Now
yes.
It's fine.
Yes. Hello everybody, and thank you to the organizers to give me the opportunity to welcome all the members of the project, all the partners in the project, and all of you which are taking place in today's webcam conference. It would be nicer if we could meet in person, but in these times the situation is different, so we have now this new way of living, and I hope we will meet again and we can talk about this and other projects which are very important in lives of people with different disabilities, not just with people with mild intellectual disabilities, but especially this project which is dealing with employing people with mild intellectual disabilities is important regarding human rights and the rights of people with disabilities, because it gives them empowerment, it gives them social inclusion, and on the other hand, it gives them a real salary, a real money for living, and this is one of, let's say, basic human rights to have an independent and full life. So I'm delightful about this project. I would really like to thank all the organizers, all the partners in this project which I met before. Especially I would like to have my thank and say my thank to BC Naklo and Anna especially. I wish you a very good day. I wish you to work hard, have new experience, and at the end I would like to see that this project will end in the real working places for people with disabilities, and that it will be sustainable. So thank you very much again for being here and for giving me a place to welcome you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter, for joining us and for your remarks. I will now show you a video of our project FARMID.
social welfare and local employment. Personal development and confidence building. A higher quality of life. Acquiring new skills and abilities. Appreciation and integration. These are the merits of a healthy working environment that every person needs and deserves, including people with mild intellectual disabilities. FARMID, my countryside, an opportunity for everyone. The principal aim of the FARMID project is to foster the employment of people with mild intellectual disabilities within the agricultural sector, thus promoting their social inclusion and improving their economic position as well as that of the farms.
So this video is a good transition to the first part of our conference. So we'll move on to the presentation of our project FARMID, as well as of the training platform and modules. So I'm going to give the floor to Anna Ambrožič, who is a project manager at the Biotechnical Center Naklo in northwest Slovenia. It is an educational institution that has been recognized as one of the main generators of development in the region, with an important synergy effect, not only in the field of education, but also in the joint actions of the economic, employment, scientific, and agricultural sectors. So Anna, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Just a second. My screen. Okay. Do you see my screen? Yes. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a few words just quickly about our project. Just a second. Okay. So as mentioned, FARMID is a project with which we are trying to promote employment of people with mild intellectual disabilities on farms. Why on farms? Because on-farm activities has already been identified to have positive effect on inclusion of people with different disabilities in terms of social care and therapy. So, but farming can be more than just therapy. It allows participation in labor processes. It allows people to achieve feelings of being productive, and it allows finally to reconnect with nature, with animals, with soil. And when this activity becomes employment, it is much, much more. It means security, financial security, health security, independence. A person gets insurance and gets right to retirement at the end of their life. So that's why we feel that employment is very important. And why did we choose people with mild intellectual disability? Well, there are countless different disabilities, and each one of them is very specific. So we had to decide for one because we cannot cover them all by one Erasmus Plus project because it's too complex. But people with mild intellectual disabilities are often at greater risk for inclusions. They are having harder times finding employment, but usually don't have any special rights and no privileges on the job market. So we thought that this group would be suitable for farmers to handle as employer, and they're also a very important group because they're at great risk of exclusion. So, which steps we needed to take to prepare a good project, in our opinion? We tried to answer question one would ask themselves when wanting to employ people with mild intellectual disability. So the first question is, how do I do it? So we tried to answer this question by going through national legislation of each participating country. We tried to turn to stakeholders, services dealing with employment with people with mild intellectual disability, and we gathered all this information in national guidelines. And these guidelines were then summarized and joined in common guidelines, where we can also compare different approaches to employment of people with different disabilities, but mostly mild intellectual disabilities within each participating country. So this was the first step. The second step is, the second question a farmer might ask himself is, does it really work? Can I make it? So we try to answer this question with case studies. We selected in each country 3 best practice examples, which we developed in case studies. So examples of people employing people with mild intellectual disabilities on farm. And deriving from both those 2 intellectual outputs, we tried to answer the third question: what do I need to learn in order to be able to successfully employ people with mild intellectual disabilities? So we developed a curriculum with the defined training needs and training goals for a farmer who would like to become social farmer, employing people with mild intellectual disabilities. So deriving from case studies and personal experience of partners, we determined modules and learning goals. And we developed those learning goals in the training platform. So we decided that we will make this training available online, so each partner, each farmer can go and train themselves with their own pace when they have time. But it can also be applied face-to-face finally, because the training content are ready for either way. So you can find more about our project on our website, farmid.bc-naklo.si, where you can choose your language. Our website is in English, in French, in Italian, Spanish, Slovenian, German. So you can find your language there. You can search under the results, where you can find guidelines on employing PMID in rural areas. Maybe just to tell you, PMID stands people with mild intellectual disability, and also case studies. And you can also access learning platform and on this web page. So I will give now my word to my colleague, Katja Keržič, who is responsible for adapting training content to online learning, and I give her my words for presentation of how the training platform works.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Hello, everyone. Welcome from my side as well. I will show you how our platform is functioning. So this is we set up like one main folder of the FARMID project, where you can find the basic information about the project. You can find useful links like our website, Twitter account, Facebook account, and basic information about the project. You can also open the website where there's some more technical information. We have our presentational video here that you saw at the beginning. And then we have platforms for different languages. We have one in English and then one in Slovene, and then Spanish, German, French, and Italian. And how you can access this platform, I will send you, you saw the link on the FARMID website here, e-learning platform. So you can open the platform from here. I will also send you this link to the chat after my presentation. And after you open this website, you go and press login. Here, if you don't have an account, you have to create one. You set up a username and password and give your information, and then you should receive an email confirming your registration, with which you can open the platform. This is a recommended way how to access the platform. You can also log in as guest, but this doesn't give you all the technical options for working with the platform, so your results won't be saved and so on. So we recommend that you register, but either way you can go through the materials as a guest as well. So to show you the English version, I will log in. Okay, second. Okay, just the basic layout is that we have 5 sections and an additional one. Anna will later present the contents of our training modules. I will just give you the short breakdown of how everything looks. So we start with the section which are the basics about mild intellectual disability. Here you have a PDF file where you can find the material about it. And when you go through it, we set up self-assessment exercises for each section. So when you go through the document, you can open up this, and we set up some exercises with which you can practice what you've learned while you went through the theoretical part of our modules. And this is, we try to set it up fun and interactive, so you have some drag words and some graphics as well. This is, you have to drag words in the brackets, and then you can check your results. You can do this multiple times, and if you are registered, your results will save, and you can try to get a better score. Then I will show you this one. For this section, there is also some, we have some graphs. This is all the contents that we had, that you can find in the presentations, the theory part. We used the information there to implement them in these exercises, so you can practice, matching games and things like that. You can see which one is which, and with this you can practice in a fun way what you've learned from the theoretical presentations. Then for each section we set up a form where for now this is empty, but later on participants on the platform will be able to ask questions and get answers for specific topics about employment of people with mild intellectual disabilities, as well as there is a form at the top where you can find news about what's happening in the project, or some other good examples of good practices, or so on, or what's going on with the platform in general. This is for all 5 sections. Section 5 is in 2 parts. So for each part you have individual self-assessments. And where it comes to additional resources, here you can find some material that was developed through the project. For example, guidelines on employment of people with mild intellectual disabilities in rural areas. You can also find this on the website, whichever is easiest for you. And then we also set up a folder where you can find examples of good practices. You can click on each one and open them. Just open the folder and open each individual studies. I'll show you the Slovenian one. Okay. So here you can find presentations that we developed through the project. You can slide down and then you can slide like that. Okay, this is all that it comes to the structure. It's quite logical. For each section you have the same kind of structure. I encourage you to check out the platform and do register. You get a better user experience. So maybe try it out and let us know what you think. I will send you the link in the chat, and feel free to enjoy this available material for you for free. So it's a good way to learn something new. And this is all from me. And now I give my word back to Anna, and she will present the documentation, the theoretical part, and the structure of the modules. Thank you.
Okay. Do you see my screen? Yes. Okay. So, as mentioned, as Katja already mentioned, we have 5 units which we developed based on the experiences and based on the feedback we received from the successful cases of already existing PMID employment on farms. So the first unit is basic knowledge about mild intellectual disability. The second one is communication. Third one, organization of work processes, very important one. Social skills. And finally, entrepreneurship and marketing. So, regarding basic knowledge about mild intellectual disabilities, after completing this module, students should be able to understand why employing people with mild intellectual disability is beneficial for their company or farm and for the local community. Students understand why can list the different possible challenges and limitations that people with mild disabilities are facing. And by the end of this module, the student should be able to recognize the skills of a person with mild intellectual disability and give them a work position according to their strong suits. So that in front there is not a disability, but the abilities that this person have. And then list and use different adaptation of the work processes that can help people with mild intellectual disability to achieve goals in the working, set goals in the working environment. And finally, to be more sensitive to the needs of PMID in the work environment and in the local community, and to organize the work process according to the individual characteristic of a person with mild intellectual disability. So, module is developed also based on 2 examples. These examples are not, they are fictional, fictional examples, but they are based on real-life experience working with people with mild intellectual disabilities. So we were inspired by real examples. And so this is, for example, Lina and Tony. These are two different people with mild intellectual disability with very different characteristics. For example, Lina is talkative, positive, interested in farming, but on the other hand, she is very impulsive and she has the determined mild intellectual disability. On the other hand, Tony is introverted, reserved. He can do more precise work, and he is very persistent with his work. Also very efficient, and he also has mild intellectual disability. So there are a lot of examples done through this module based on those two, based on Lina and Tony. So it's as practical as it can be. For the communication module, which is the second one, with this module, students learn how to communicate effectively and coherently in regards to introducing employment of people with mild intellectual disabilities on farms. Students should be able to identify various communication categories, recognize and overcome communication problems, learn methods and techniques to facilitate communication with people with mild intellectual disabilities, and learn why it is important to ensure communication with other stakeholders, with wider stakeholders, for example, family and other employees and customers, finally. And by the end of this module, one should be able to confidently apply communication strategies in order to improve communication for and with people with mild intellectual disabilities. So also, this is just one slide from this module as an example. So these are some practical steps how to approach when communicating with people with mild intellectual disabilities. So, for example, talk to a person with disability in the same way as you would talk to anyone else. So try to talk with this person directly and not to talk to a companion adult. And for example, don't just assume that they need some assistance. Give them an opportunity to do things by themselves, even if it takes a longer time. So this is just one example from the module. So the third module is organization of work processes. This is, I think, that one of the most important and very complex modules. The thing is that each agricultural activity requires different knowledge and skills, of course. For example, there is different approach, different skills if you are working with livestock farm, or if you are working with pure arable farms, if you are doing work at vegetables or fruit farms. Every activity needs different skills. And so with this module, you will learn how to adjust these skills or how to adapt the process of learning and adaptation of working environment based on the abilities of the worker. So first, it is important to find and identify the most appropriate workplace for the person. And then also there are some advices on how to enhance learning process with employees. There are different approaches to that. A four-stage model is presented, house of workability, and also how to consider health issues when organizing work for people with mild intellectual disabilities. For example, this is one example from the module. So this is example of how to transplant a plant. So this seems like a very simple task, but if we observe it carefully, we can see that there are a lot of subtasks or workflows that we need to consider. For example, preparing work equipment, mixing plant soil, filling soil in pots, then piercing a hole in the soil with a dibber, lifting plants from the potting compost with a dibber, dividing plants, placing them in the holes, pressing the soil, watering, labeling, and so on. And each of these workflows or tasks, small little tasks, require competences. So that we don't even think about. For example, orientation skills, organization skills, activity skills, workplace. We need memory performance. We need to have developed gross motor skills, perseverance, and other technical skills. So this is one of the examples what is presented in this module. So, and how to adjust this and find this, find the right position, because this is, I think, very important to find a workplace where both are employee and employee can feel comfortable and are content with themselves and their work. Okay, the fourth module is social skills. Module presents on practical real-life examples what are the challenges related to social skills that the employer needs to face, how they influence the work process, and how can we improve them. It also improves develops leadership, management, and teamwork skills. It also demonstrates the ups and downsides of employing people with mild intellectual disabilities, and also encourages accepting differences, offers practical approaches and solutions for improvement of social skills of employees, and finally gives some advice and keys to successful employment of PMID. So when we were talking about this, I know that the question was, for example, why does the employer need to deal with social skills of their employees? For example, if they are not able to handle their budget, for example, but it influences finally the work, because if, for example, someone overspends the money before he even gets the salary, and when the salary comes, they feel less motivated because after all the payments or the debts are covered, the salary is so low, so they don't feel motivated anymore, for example, for the work process. So this module is also very practical, as mentioned, and it's developed also based on real life experience. So here we have example of Alex, who is a young man living in an apartment with his parents. This is his third employment. He's actually a very good worker. He's hardworking, he's collegial and reliable, but he has problems with money. He has hard time understanding instruction. He doesn't want to work alone. And when he gets money, he spends everything for his parents, or he's buying everyone drinks. So when the salary comes, he's soon out of money. And he doesn't know, for example, what kind of social benefits he could be entitled to. So how can we solve the problem? Maybe we can help him with finding him a partner, or addressing him to people who know where to find an apartment, to municipality maybe, to give him some non-profit apartment, for example, and also to talk about your experience, how you manage this in your life or someone else, or And also we can discuss how to plan expenses, talking about us and our friends and families, how we do it, so he doesn't feel like we are talking about him directly, but about other people's experience. Also that he doesn't, maybe we can tell him that he doesn't have to buy drinks to his friends. With friends will be friends even if you don't buy him drinks, or maybe they can buy him drinks, for example, by themselves once in a while. So, and also to direct him how, for the benefits, we can help him with the forms, and tell him about taxes and what they need to do to have everything in order. So we can help him print the forms and fill it in. So this is one of the examples, but there are many like this in this module. So the final module is entrepreneurship and marketing. Maybe I got a response from some people. Why does this matter for employing people with mild intellectual disability? Why is marketing important? Why is entrepreneurship important? But after the developed case studies, we noticed that this is the greatest lack of training. Our best practice examples were missing. So entrepreneurship and marketing are part of any business. This can be farming business with people with mild intellectual disability or without them. But of course, there are some specifics that are tackled with this module. So in entrepreneurship part, there is an overview of social economic environment of social farming, the representation of meaning, roles and advantages and risks of social farming. Also legal aspects are presented, how to develop a business plan with some practical examples, how to manage finances, how to format price. And in marketing part, there is social marketing approaches, how to know your customers, how to set goals, and how to develop marketing plan based on 4 Ps. This is price, products, placement, and promotion. So this is one example of how to develop or design social farming business idea. So this is a decision tree that can be done by a farmer who decides to do it. And this is, for example, a slide from how can we define pricing. So how can we determine which would be the right price for our products that we are selling. So this is basically it. I would like to invite you to go to our Moodle, to our platform, and check out the modules. We will be very happy if you can send us some feedback if you don't find anything working, or if you don't agree with something, or you find something good, so we can still improve it later, even after the end of the project. So this is all on my side. Maybe I will just show you, just for this transition, I will show you a short video presentation of one of our case studies that was developed in Slovenia. It's farm Keržič. So this is the organic farm located in the hilly northeast region of Slovenia. They've been established since 2008 and they have 22 employment with different disabilities. So they are combined. There is a farm and then there is an employment center employing people with mild intellectual disabilities. Mostly men are employed. But this is a coincidence. And the challenges they are facing, for example, they have higher numbers of sick leave. The main need for training was communication and marketing skills. So yeah, this is from the video. And that's it. You can check it out more in detail on our website. So thank you. This is all from my side, and I give my word back to Juliet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna and Katja, for your demonstration of the training platform. So everyone will receive a link in the email after the webinar with a link to the platform and the website, so you can access it easily, and don't hesitate to share it with anyone who would be interested in the topic and who wants to learn more about employing people with mild intellectual disabilities on farms. So please, if you have questions, do not hesitate to ask them in the question box, and we can come back later to those questions. So before moving to the second part of the conference, I would like to interact with the audience a little bit. So first we will use the raise hand button. And so I would like you to raise your hand if you think that more people with mild intellectual disabilities could use or be employed on social farms than is currently the case. So if you agree, raise your hand with the button. So if you think that more people should be employed on social farms. Okay, I see some answers. Yeah, so most of you agree with this sentence. That's great. And now I would like to do a little poll. So let's launch the poll. And the question is, what is the best way, according to you, to promote the employment of people with mild intellectual disabilities on farms? So we have 3 answers. So the first one is to make the public aware of its benefits. The second one is to train the farmers. And the last one is to develop European legislation. So let's see the answers. So of course, there's no right or wrong answer in this question, but we thought it would be interesting to see what the majority thinks. Okay, so we have our result, I think. So the 2 first answers are completely equal. So that's interesting. And then there's less answers for the last one. Okay, thank you for answering to this poll. We can come back to the results later. And now there's a bit more for the first answer, to make the public aware of its benefits. And I think that's one of the issues that we try to tackle with this project and with this conference, is to disseminate about this topic and make people aware. Okay, thank you very much. So we will now welcome our 3 panelists who work in the field of social farming. So each panelist will have 15 minutes to do a presentation, and then we'll have a panel session with questions from the audience. So again, please don't hesitate to ask your questions already in the question box. So I would like to first introduce Suzanne Smyth, a doctoral researcher at Queen's University Belfast, conducting research on how social farming works, for whom, in what circumstances, and the current facilitating and hindering contexts impacting levels of commissioning of social farming services in Northern Ireland. So Suzanne, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so firstly, I'd just like to say thank you very much for allowing me to be part of today. It's going to be a brilliant learning opportunity for me as well, so I'm looking forward to hearing everything else, and thanks to the presenters so far who've given some really interesting information for me. So first of all, to give an idea of social farming in Northern Ireland, we have a nice map here to show you the layout of where our farms are currently. The first introduction of social farming in its current form in Northern Ireland was in 2011. Border county farms on the south were paired with farms in the Republic of Ireland to provide social farming sessions for a group of 66 participants over 30 weeks. This was funded by another EU project at that time, and over 30 weeks these farmers offered sessions as volunteers to test out the concept. The project was evaluated as it went along, and the results were overwhelmingly positive for both the participants and for the farmers involved. And it really helped to prove the concept that this could be a sector of care in Northern Ireland. So the most important outcome of the initial project for Northern Ireland was our Department of Agriculture promised their support for social farming. They funded the development of a service, the Social Farming Support Service, which is looked after by the charity Rural Support, which is up on the side there. They're a rural charity focusing on farming issues. The Social Farming Support Service, their key areas are to train social farmers, to provide opportunities for anyone who would like to become a social farmer to find out more, and then for those who are social farming to maintain training. The second half of their remit is to promote social farming to our health and social care services. Our country is split into 5 different referral areas, and so far in Northern Ireland we have seen that it's been very popular in some areas but much less so in others. So we still have quite an unstable situation here. There are a small number of farms, approximately 10, who would be able to provide social farming services for people on a regular basis. And you can see on the map there's a few more than that, and we have a few more than that since who have registered to be social farmers. But at the minute it's very difficult for people to be placed on the farms. Naturally at the minute there's no social farming going on here, but prior to COVID there was still quite a discrepancy between areas where social farming is happening and where it is not. We've moved on from the model that was begun in the first project. The farmers are now paid by the health services here to provide services. The health service refer participants to the farms, mostly for short-term placements. There are a few which are long-term, but at the minute, unfortunately, it's more short-term opportunities. Our key demographic would be people with learning disabilities and people with mental health challenges. But the aim of our services would be to expand that remit of people. We would hope to have people from lots of different social needs who might be able to make use of social farms, and obviously to have more stable arrangements with our health services here. So my research is funded by the Department of Agriculture as part of their expression that they want this sector to be supported. And so my first part of the research was to conduct a scoping review. So scoping reviews in this context would be where you gather all of the literature from peer-reviewed scientific journals on your subject of interest to map what's been done, which participant groups have been evaluated, what kind of outcomes were looked at. So this next slide shows here the results of the scoping review. So the focus of this was really on participants' experiences of social farming and the impacts of their participation on their health. And our definition of health was very broad, not just to include studies that looked at reductions of certain symptoms or cured problems, but more to see how social farming impacted broader aspects of health like social, emotional and spiritual well-being as well. So you can see here that it's quite a broad range of people who have had their experiences evaluated. There were only 37 papers found, so published worldwide in scientific literature. There are currently 37 studies which evaluate aspects of health. There are quite a lot more studies which looked at marketing techniques and which looked at the spread of practices across countries, but specifically looking at participant outcomes, this is what we've got. The thickness of the arrows are to represent how many studies looked at each aspect. So you can see the most popular patient group which has had their experiences evaluated are people with mental illnesses, and the studies were quite broad in what they defined as mental illness, and it was always heterogeneous groups of people with different disorders or problems classed together in one group. The second most popular was people with dementia. So I know there are quite a few studies in the Netherlands of the benefits of care farming or social farming for people with this degenerative disease. And then the next one you could see is heterogeneous participants. So there are a few studies which grouped together groups of the ones mentioned here and looked at their experiences together. And if I can just highlight then in the pink, intellectual disabilities, there have actually only been 2 studies published in scientific journals which report the effects of social farming on people with intellectual disabilities. Both of the papers were published in the UK, and they were observational studies, so they didn't actually measure any quantitative measure of health, but rather they explored the experiences of their participants through interviews and observations. So very positive results, that has to be said across the board. The results of the trials, the results of the experiments were all very positive in their findings overall, and there were very few negative experiences reported across any of the studies. So the 2 studies here are named, which focused on intellectual disabilities. They were groups of adults with intellectual disabilities, and there were a total of 38 people involved in these studies, so it's still quite small. The types of benefits that they reported were sense of belonging, physical fitness improved, increased confidence, increased sense of purpose, increased sense of well-being. So those are the type of results reported across all of the studies. The majority of the studies were qualitative rather than quantitative, but I think it's quite easy to see why. It's very hard to quantify some of the benefits of social farming, and I do think that's been an issue so far, is that you're up against people publishing studies on the benefits of antidepressants, which may have the same types of outcomes. And we have thousands of studies published on the efficiency, effectiveness, efficacy of these types of drugs. It's much easier to measure the results, and we have different scoring for that. But there's a lot of queries about the actual meaning of the results from these types of scoring systems, as opposed to actually asking people to explain the meanings themselves. And thankfully, there has been a change within sort of the medical literature. We are now looking less at biomedical definitions of health, where we're focused on reductions of symptoms and more considering aspects of human flourishing in different ways. So I think that would be, you can see that comes out in some of the social farming literature, and hopefully that will continue, because I do think that a lot of the benefits can be difficult to quantify, and I know that a lot of health services depend on having numbers to work with to deem whether an intervention is going to be funded or not, or whether it's going to be effective or not. So most of the results were that it seemed to be very positive across groups of people, that it wasn't more effective for people with dementia than it was for people with an intellectual disability or young adults who were vulnerable or out of education. It looked like among these groups that it had lots of the same benefits, and the studies reported that many of them, they reported the same means of coming to these outcomes. They repeatedly talked about, the benefits of having a close relationship with the farmer, develop relationships with the other participants, the opportunities to do tasks that were meaningful. Across the board, it was all this type of thing that came up again and again. So the second part of the research then was really to try and answer, well, who in particular does this intervention work for? And we tried to broaden that beyond looking at groups defined by a definition of or a diagnosis of some kind of impairment. It was to look beyond that to see, within that group, that very large group, which people did seem to have to experience more benefits. So to do that, we looked at a much broader range of sources. 65 sources were used, which included papers that were discussion papers, papers that had case studies rather than larger groups of individuals involved. And then we also interviewed groups of farmers from Norway, the Netherlands, the USA, the UK and Ireland, because these people are the experts. They see every day who is actually benefiting from this and how it actually works. I have to say, a lot of the studies that we do in the in the side of psychology or medicine, we look at effectiveness and suggesting, does an intervention cause a certain outcome? And many of the studies are designed to give you an answer, yes, it is effective, or no, it is not. But they aren't designed to tell you anything more about how or why those impacts might have been observed. So we did what's called a realist synthesis, where we theorise on what the processes might be for certain people and why an intervention might work better for some people and less well for others. So the findings then of who social farming really works for, beyond having an impairment of some kind. Obviously, firstly, it's people with an interest in farming. Naturally, that has to be part of the interest. We did find that there were people who hadn't maybe been on farms. It's not always people with a background in agriculture, but it is often people that have some interest in either some aspect of the farming experience, that they see value in that type of work. Then, more importantly, we were able to try and define people who would get the most out of this intervention as people who are living with an impairment and that really experience stigma attached to that impairment and the labels that they have. So a sense of being different and unequal, or simply not normal in relative to others who they may consider their peers. So specifically, these people are experiencing a distressing threat to their own identity in the form of their label as impaired. So any social interaction associated with that impairment can also impact their sense of identity, and this very much impacts their well-being as well. So often people within these groups can feel wrongly categorized as impaired, that their identity internally is that they are capable or that they would like to be, but they're constantly fed back this message that they need care rather than to be cared. They need to be cared for rather than to provide care. So to achieve positive well-being, it's theorized that one needs to feel capable, in control, with the ability to contribute to meaningful, purposeful activity. And this is a large part of many people's identity. To develop identity, there are two aspects: the self-identity, what you conceive yourself to be, and the lesser or greater extent that you see that you are capable. And then the social identity, which is how you believe you're perceived by others and how you are perceived by others. So for many people, the two parts of identity can match up well. You can feel that you're more or less capable, and the way people respond to you, they recognize that you are more or less capable. So you perceive yourself to be capable and you are treated as such, and this is a very positive experience for people. And often people use work as a way, as they use it as a role in which they can experience well-being related to this awareness that you are functional and capable. However, for people with impairments, for whom it is important still to have this identity of being capable, normal, there are very few opportunities to enter into any social situations in which you might be treated like this. So the nature of many impairments mean that occupational roles are limited or non-existent, and therefore you have less opportunity to feel that others perceive you as capable. So in addition to this, the self-identity you possess may become threatened by all of the interactions that you have with health professionals, people who provide care, which is necessary, but often it can leave people feeling that they have less confidence, that they have less self-efficacy, and all of this can be quite a distressing process to occur. So these people are experiencing what we call identity threat because they are categorized as someone that they don't believe themselves to be. In their self-identity, they're still capable, they would like to have the opportunity to do this, but their interactions in their everyday lives are limited to social occasions where they receive care from people, and often their label is reinforced by any interactions they have. So really then what social farming does is it can reverse these processes and it can address these identity threats. All of the things that Anna has already discussed and talked about, all of these really specialised but very normal seeming activities that go on at the farm. So the series of encounters that you would have at the farm with numerous individuals, farmers, other participants, visitors to the farm, even animals if there are animals present. You can complete tasks which are meaningful, you receive praise and gratitude, you can learn skills, all of these processes by which beliefs about how you're perceived by others are challenged and about how your negative self-beliefs might also be challenged. So as Anna pointed out, a perfect example of a social encounter by which a capable identity is confirmed is simply addressing a person with an intellectual disability as an adult to their face rather than speaking to their carer. That's a small micro social situation where someone may feel like, oh, they must see me as someone capable, someone adult, someone that could be responsible. So identities can be transformed through these positive interactions in an environment which does not reinforce the social identity of someone that is impaired. And as Anna said, you know, less focus on labels, speak to people normally. Another example would be there are obviously lots of tasks to be completed on the farm, but even the simple act of the farmer asking for someone's help can be a signal to them that they're being recognised as someone that has capability rather than someone that must be cared for all the time. And this can be a really positive experience for people. So you can see here on our kind of flow of how things can work at the farm. We have a context of people experiencing categorisation threat who also perceive farm work or some element of that as meaningful and that it could potentially contribute to their positive identity. And then we have participants going along who participate in the activities in the farm. We've called it a liminal environment, and that basically means an environment which is kind of between worlds, where you can leave the labels behind, where there's no focus on your impairments, your struggles or difficulties. And within this environment, there are lots of occasions for you to develop a new identity as a capable, coherent, responsible person, where it feels normal and like work, but which is actually very carefully designed by our social farmers to make sure that it isn't too stressful or difficult. So we noticed that there would be people who always drop out of interventions, and often the reasons firstly were that people didn't find the activities to be very interesting or meaningful to them. So it's always worth lots of people trying it, and always there would be some people that it might just not work for, even for practical reasons, people who don't like the smells or the sounds or the mess, the dirt on a farm, that could stop people from moving on with it. So our arrows pointing downwards are really how people might leave. So we also have people who may leave because the environment doesn't allow for them to experience these identity transformations. So if their environment resembles institutions too much, if there's too much focus on providing care rather than giving opportunities to be the carer, to be the responsible person, or at the other end of the spectrum, if the environment resembles a work environment with too many negative incentives associated with completing the tasks. So if you can avoid those situations, people can encounter lots of opportunities to experience being a capable, useful person. And so by removing that label and that sense of stigma attached to the label, people can begin to feel empowered, to feel confident. We've conceptualized the different outcomes of having these labels removed that we found in the literature. We actually found 26 different outcomes in the literature, which we've then themed within the table that I've just showed you. But really, it's a process which can have setbacks, it can have steps forward, but through carefully planned activities by the farmer, positive changes to self-identity can be made. To feel that you're capable and to be recognised as such is very important for people's well-being. And as Anna has said, employment would be the obvious benefit, would provide many more benefits than simply improved well-being, and that it would provide stability and security in a much more broad sense. So the main findings from our review of who social farming works for and then what should be included in your social farm experience is that to really consider the background of participants, not only to find out if they might be interested in social farming, but but also to find out if they are experiencing stigma, if they are experiencing the sense that they aren't being able to meet their full potential in their current activities. There was one study in particular which really expressed this by proving the opposite. There was a study of adults aged 65 plus, and they didn't really experience as many of the benefits that other groups did. And I think this is particularly because they were active in their community. They were community living people over 65 who recruited themselves to the study, which would imply that they probably are quite confident and have a good level of self-esteem to begin with. So these people didn't experience those transformations in the same way because they had a solid identity that they were content with to begin with. Also, there's a real importance to having a purposeful lack of focus on any diagnostic labels in the environment, just because it gives people the opportunity to focus on creating a new identity. Lots of studies report the significance to participants of just being addressed normally, to not having any discussions on diagnosis, to not speaking in terms of their problems or how to improve them. The focus was really on providing assistance to the farmer to complete tasks, to feed animals that needed to be fed, to do work in the gardens that had to be done. There was no focus on how this may have helped the participant. The focus was all on how this participant could help the farm. And then following on from that, consistent support from staff or farmers. So many people with a range of these impairments that were discussed and noted, they experience a lot of changes in their social support. Staff leave, new staff come along, and they maybe aren't able to form strong bonds. So it's very important to have solid, continuous support from the staff or the farmer at the intervention. And it's also key to have a range of activities on offer. This is particularly useful to make sure that if people are having a harder day, that they can do a less challenging task or a less physically strenuous task, and also to keep people's attention and to make sure that there's always something that would incentivize people to try something new. But it's equally important then to make sure that you imbue all activities with meaning. One study really expressed the importance of this. There was a study which looked at how social farming can reduce depression and anxiety in people with mental illnesses. And they looked at how different activities correlated with reductions or increases in anxiety or depression scores. And for people who were given tasks which were obviously important to the running of the farm, moving cattle or milking cows, those people experienced reductions in their anxiety and depression levels. However, people who were given tasks that maybe seemed less important, such as grooming animals or mucking out stables, they did not experience those reductions. In fact, some of them experienced increases in anxiety. So from this, we were able to theorize that if people understand that there is a meaning to the activity, they're more likely to be motivated to do the activity, and they're more likely then to experience the benefits of having completed the task. And then equally to allow people to dissociate from their negative labels, the last to have collaborative decision-making processes, to have communal meal and break times. These are really important opportunities where people can reassess that they are equal to the farmer, to the other staff, to participants. A lot of people remarked that it was a really pleasant experience to be at the same table as the farmer, to be at the same table as staff, rather than there being clearly demarked areas for those who needed cared for and those that provided that care. So I think that's a really important element. And a key recommendation, which is completely congruous with what we are talking about today, is that people with intellectual disabilities should absolutely have the most long-term placement at social farms. This idea that you can transform identity can occur in the farm, but obviously outside the farm, social interactions that you have can either reinforce that new identity or it can equally erode that new identity. So for people who maybe have temporary impairment that they can recover from physically, that a short-term attachment to a farm may be enough to help rebuild confidence and self-esteem, which then they can use to pursue roles that they would like in their lives. But for people who have chronic conditions and lifelong conditions, the interactions they have outside of the farm may continue to remind them, to reinforce that they're not always recognised as capable. So to keep the benefits for the longest, to have the largest amount of benefits, it's absolutely important that people have a regular placement where they get to be included as valued participants who are able to be capable and to offer their care and offer their skills. So I'm aware that there is a lot of research that I wouldn't have got to find because much social farming research doesn't end up in journals. It's used much more practically to promote services or to engage with different audiences or potential participant groups. So I'm always very happy to learn more and to have my theories changed or refined by any other findings. So if people have case studies which look at processes of how they believe social farming works for participants, I'd be really, really keen to receive them. And lastly, the next part of my study will be more to do with the marketing of social farming in Northern Ireland, how we can promote the service better. And that's where I'll be going from here. But that's the end of my presentation. And I'd just like to say thank you very much for listening. And I'm looking forward to hearing from everyone else this morning. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Suzanne, for sharing your research on social farming with us. And yeah, I think that it's really important to have empirical evidence on the positive effect that social farming can have, and to also provide recommendations, as you did, on how to practice social farming in the most efficient way. We have a question from the audience. So, Suzanne, do you have any open source data observations regarding the farmers' behavior during the farming processes in terms of big data representation? I also shared with you the question so you can see it written.
Oh, thank you. Oh yes, I can see it. There have been a few studies which have survey studies which looked at the barriers to being a social farmer. I think there was one published from a Norwegian perspective, and it seems to be the same issues across the board, that there's still this lack of awareness about the benefits of social farming because it's so different from other types of care for people, and it looks as though there has to be a lot more understanding on behalf of health services about the benefits, but also the lack of risks. I think that's something that came across quite strongly, that farmers were consistently having to explain that it wasn't a normal farm. For participants, the experience should be that it's a normal farm experience, but really it's a very specialised care environment which has a lot of design and skill behind it. But no, there aren't that, in the published literature, there weren't that many studies which focused on the farmer experience. I think it's something that a few people are working on. I've seen that there are protocols and things for studies that may come out, but yeah, the main challenges, problems they face would be that people don't understand the benefits, that it's hard to quantify the benefits in a way that it makes it comparable to other types of therapies as well. You know, for if you have people going to a day centre, you might have some statistics on what kind of benefits there are for that. But because we're a very broken up group of researchers, because the research isn't used the same way for the same purposes, I mean, even to look at that list of outcomes, each study used their own outcome measures, so it's very hard to compare across papers what the benefits were. So I think it's just, there's still this lack of evidence which we can compare to other forms of therapy to say, well, this for some people is more beneficial in fact than your alternative. So, and also the funding stream is a huge problem everywhere so far, that it's very hard to get stable funding. But again, I think that if we had stronger evidence base and a more joined up approach of which outcomes we measure across different groups, that we would be able to use that evidence to encourage health services to fund more sustainably. But yeah, again, I think it's perhaps it's too innovative in some areas. I know that a lot of health services would be risk adverse, and there is a movement towards allowing people to have, you know, to have dignity and risk, to allow them to experience things outside of what's considered very safe. But it's a slow process, but I do think things are changing, yeah, hopefully. we'll try.
Yeah, thank you, Suzanne, for your answer. So we're going to move to our second speaker, Ilaria Signoriello. Ilaria has been working in the field of social agriculture in Italy since 2007 in social cooperatives as a university professor, but also in the National Forum of Social Agriculture based in Italy. So the Forum is a non-profit organization whose aim is to represent and promote the values and principles of social agriculture in Italy and in Europe. So Ilaria, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. I just want to bring my greetings on behalf of Social Farming National Forum and also Agricoltura Capodarco. As you can see close to me, I will not following the slide, but because I just got some stimulus from the speaker that just spoke before me. I'd like also to introduce a person close to me that you will understand who is when I go through Agricoltura Capodarco concrete experiences. He's the founder, is a person that in the 1978 thought in Italy that agriculture could be a place of inclusion for people with mental disability. I thought it was nice to have this person. Now he's 89 years old. He does not understand English that well, but he wants to bring his greeting to you as well, because for us, listen, that now social farming, when we started, we didn't know we were doing social farming. I'm sitting in that farm that is started in 1978, founded by Don Franco and physical disabled people, that they were dreaming a different life, a life that was like each one of us, you know, where you are a person, you are not a disabled, you know. I don't need to give you a service. I need to build with you a process for you to be a person in the full sense of these words. And so I was happy to have Don Franco close to me. Social farming, I just want to say a few words about the Social Farming National Forum, because this Capodarco was promoted as social farming together with other organizations at the Social Farming National Forum. This was the result, even if it was formed in 2011, that was the result of a long process, a bottom-up process, because in Italy, especially social farming was born from instance of justice and freedom for people. And that's why I wanted Don Franco close to me, because he was pushed by the, I could say, also the need of parents. They couldn't accept that their children, the only chance they could have because disabled was to be closed in a mental institution. So he started in the 1970s these long experiences that brought also to the Social Farming National Forum. As you can see, before you were talking about, you made a question concerning your service, say, okay, but is that possible to employees also social mental disabled people in a farm? Yes, my answer will, based on the concrete experience, I would say yes. And I would also say that in this case, but for everybody, job is not just an income. We think that job is fundamental, is the basic element to build an inclusive society, also to build, to respect the human rights for all people. That's why I'm saying, and we strongly believe that social farming is one of the concrete practices that can really, really, really achieve the sustainable development goals, and also the Agenda 2030 ambitious purpose. When we started with Agricoltura Capodarco, we were also with the Social Farming National Forum, which is a place of discussion. Born in 2011, but starting at the very end of last centuries, is a place of discussion. We felt the need that we need to be together, because social farming is something that is not just social, is not just education, is not just farming, it's a mix of all these components that break down together and create something that is extremely new. And this is the value, because all the members of our forums, which are farmers, social cooperative, researchers, local authorities, social workers, NGOs, parents, association, sign and this chart of principle in which there are all the values that are inspiring our action. I just want to focus on a couple of that. One of this is this: social farming is not just to move a service from one place to another. It's an economic challenge. is a new way of interpreting also agriculture, especially the small-scale farm agriculture, and try to have a vision also future of organic society organization. And this is the principle on which we are basing our action. And mainly, we could say there are two main pillars, which is the social justice and the environmental justice. So it's not just the agriculture, it's not just the welfare of proximity, a new idea of welfare, but it's much more. It's a vision of economy that should be at the service of local communities, starting by also the people that we generally define as fragile. So I just want to go a concrete example. As I said, this Agricoltura Capodarco is a multifunctional farm. The founder is sitting here close to me. I'm so proud of it. And it was founded in the 1978. And in this place, since then, I'm working, trainers, and they are coming here also as a volunteer, many people with mental disabilities, also psychiatric disorder. What I'm saying is that this is a farm. This is a multifunctional organic farm. So it's not just our main challenge is to be on the market, but with our own values. So everything we do, also that you can see on the also in this part of organization of our farm, is used to make the social inclusion of mental disabled people, but also asylum seeker, because we work with different kind of fragility, but now we are concentrating on that. And the multifunctionality and also different activities that we are doing. As you can see, we got bees, we do produce wine, we got 40 hectares of a vegetable garden, 2 shops, 1 restaurant, and we do organize events. All these different activities are, they can give us the opportunities to include other people with different ability, So different activities for different abilities. And I just want to make a consideration. Agricoltura Capodarco is a mixed farm. I'm sitting here, next to me there is the restaurant, just in front of me there is an house family where Don Frank is living with 2 people with mental disabilities, and the Orietta, which is now is the mom of the whole group, but that she has a physical disabilities. This is one of the main characteristics of Agricoltura Capodarco. So you can find when you get inside, it's like a normal Italian agritourism, but step by step you will understand that there is something more special, and you will see that there is house family, and Frank and Fabrizio are working in our vegetable garden and then in restaurants. And then we got the shops, and then you can see the people in training work in our shop. Of course, our farm has a long history. We started thanks to Don Franco in the 1978. That for Italy was a milestone because we had what we call the Basaglia law, which shut down the mental hospital. So there was the pushing also that there were the needs of family to find a place for mental disabled people where they could be finally valorized as a person, because behind this, according to me, what makes social farming great is that the relationship between people. Mental disabled people are workers. So they come here, they get in touch with the customers, so they speak with other people that goes around in our farm. So are members of our farms. Of course, they are fragile, they need to be in a protected environment, but for example, Franco and Fabrizio, they are directly employee. So they are not paid by the service, now they are directly employees and they are working in our activities. As you can see, this is an example of our product, but I want to underline the social values because social farming is a great challenge. It is a social innovation, but is also an economic and productive innovation. We are an organic farm, and what you can see is just a set of the value of the product that we are producing. Don Franco is the name of the wine that we wanted to dedicate to our founders, which is a sulfite-free wine. So we wanted also to make it suitable for vegan people. So we also try to understand which are the space in the market where we could produce innovative product. But what is important that when this wine get on the tables, you know, and then you can taste it, and it's good, because the first thing is that everything has to be good, like in any other farms or in any other activities, and then you can tell, you can create a narrative on that and say why this is good twice, which is the powerful meaning behind this wine. And then you can talk about the people working on that. You can create also different reputation of the farm within the local communities. You can say, I'm producing good, I'm producing also human rights and democracy. Because when you give, you can create a space where people with difficult background, I'm saying mental disabled people, but also drug addicted, a person in jail. We are dealing with all these kind of fragile people. Then we can say that it's possible to be on the market, but with different value, to show that land and agriculture is an amazing space for the inclusion of vulnerable people, but at the same time to create democracy in and to support the local community. As you can see, we got a shop and the vineyard, and when we go and when it's time to harvest our grape, that's one of the most beautiful time here. And all our, I'm always saying guys, I cannot call them end users, but they are workers, so our workers. And for them is extremely, we can say, the best part of the year, because we got there all together, we have breakfast and the open space, and then we can see the transformation of the product, you know? From grapes up to the wine, and then this wine finish on our tables and restaurant. We do work a lot with school training alternation as well, as you can see the guys here in the kitchen with our chef is a trainees. Daniele is working with us, I think now it's 15 years. He's directly employee, started with a social project, and now is autonomous. He knows exactly what he had to do every day when he gets here in the farm. He's not living here, he's living in the city center of Rome. He get a bus, he come here with us every day to work in the land. I'm not saying the good impact that working with land, animals on plein air may have on these people, because it was said before, but I want to go through a very specific, also great opportunity in terms of implementing social farming and services in a farm. In Italy, and this is what we are now concentrated, is what is going to happen to mental disabled people when people are going to die. So who's going to take care of these children when the parents, they will be over. And then we decided maybe instead of creating big structures and putting there without, you know, relationship and maybe with people that don't even know who they are, we decided to create an experimental process, and we opened to house family in this farm that we call Casa Narita and Casa Miglia and Memo, when they're living young people like Alessia that you can see in the picture that lost their parents. I just want to go through this is my last consideration, and because I think it's quite important concerning the topic. We directly employees, we got the mental disabled people directly employees by us, but we got also shelter laboratories and projects that were, in this case, financed by the mental health department of Frascati. This started in 2008, so it's more than 10 years, where there are mental disabled people are working with flowers, producing flowers, plants, and they are totally integrating the daily life of our farms. I'm not going through the whole slides because I got no time, but I want to make a final consideration, a concern, because I'm being invited by European Landowner Organization, and I was thinking about the value that the land may have with this kind of activity. It's not only economic value, but there will be also a social value that in the long terms, that's I'm sure what I'm saying, will be also an income that you can have in your balance in the long terms, because this is a relational good that in a way or in another will get back into the farms. So what I'm saying is that, of course, it's possible to employ mental disabled people in a farm. I think it's a great challenge, And I'm very happy that in the European context now is developing in such fast way, and we can, I'm proud of, that Tom Franco is here and could say that the small seed that we planted long times ago is flourishing all around Europe. So thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you so much for what you're doing. And if you like, once come here and have a look, we are happy to host you in our restaurant to talk directly with our guys and workers, so you can get the best of their experiences. So thank you very much, and let's keep hard because social farming is the future of agriculture in Europe. The best made in Italy and made in Europe.
Thank you very much, Ilaria, for this very positive message and for showing us those real-life examples. It's amazing to see, and thank you for the great work you're achieving with your several social farming projects for years now. So thank you very much to both of you. So I've received some questions, but I'll save them for later for the Q&A sessions. And I will now move on to and welcome Michael Longhino, who is a partner of this project, this FARMID project. He's part of the CHANCE-B organization. In CHANCE-B, he is a member of the board of directors and heads the innovation and development department. CHANCE-B is a non-profit organization operating in the Austrian region of East Styria, which ensures that all human beings in need of help can have a fulfilled life. So, Michael, the floor is yours. I think you're muted, Michael.
Sorry, everybody. Yes, thank you for the invitation that I can also have a contribution to the final conference. I would say hello from very bad weather Austria. Hopefully in other parts of Europe we will have better weather conditions than here in Austria. Yes, I will try to share my slides with you. Does that work? I think it's okay. Now I only see my slide, and yeah. Yes, what I want to highlight now, we heard today a lot of very interesting approaches. I had the feeling that we heard today that meaningful work, taking responsibility for persons with disabilities is a very crucial factor to have a good life, a good quality of life, to have personal development, to feel part of the community. And it was very beautiful to see from a scientific point of view that these positive aspects of social farming can be shown, and that we all know that it is not only about taking a person to a farm and move the service from one place to the other. I think it's very important that we have the right setting in social farming so that people can flourish, you know, like the products who are produced on the farm. But on the other hand, I think it is also very important that we live new visions of doing agricultural business. I think the colleagues from Italy highlighted this in a very good way to say that if we want to go towards the sustainable development goals, towards the aims of European Union, we have to further develop our ways of how we are doing agricultural business. And I think social services, together with further development of social farming, is a very good way of contributing to that overarching aims. It was very interesting for me that when Juliette did the questions, that the point of European legislation was only on 3rd place. I have the chance, beginning of July, to talk to members of the Commission about the new setup of the European Regional Development Fund in the next period of the European structural funds. Maybe this is a little bit technical issue, but I think that European Union is very strong in offering support for regional development. A lot of money from European Union is spent for agriculture. And I think that it is very important to bring in our ideas of social farming to the decision makers in Commission and in the member states, so that they realize that contributing to social farming, designing good frameworks for social farming can be a crucial element of further developing the European Union strategy of the social pillar of rights, the social inclusion, but also the positive agricultural development towards more sustainable agricultural systems in Europe. And I think it is very important to highlight that what we are doing in Chance B is why I'm talking about European level when I come from Eastern Styria, from a very rural area in the south of Austria. What Chance B is doing since many years is we link rural development in a small area with ideas of overarching development in European Union. We try to contribute with our experiences to European development. And I think what I wanted to highlight in a few minutes is how rural community development linked with social services can lead to a livable living space in rural areas in Europe. I think what we are confronted in Europe is that in many countries, people move from rural areas to cities, and this development is understandable if we cannot offer a good living in the rural areas. I think that the examples we heard today, social farming, etc., can contribute to a livable living space in rural areas, and therefore can contribute that people do not move to cities, that rural areas stay alive, that people want to see a sense in living in rural areas. And I believe that there are this is where we are coming from. I think that there are 4 main aspects of life who can contribute to a good living in a rural area. If you want to stay there, you need educational systems so that your children can raise very well, that you have schools and kindergartens and opportunities for your children to develop in a good way. Of course, if you want to live in a rural area, you have to have employment, you have to have a job, you have to have a situation where you can earn a living. But also it is important that you have a good place to stay, that you live in a proper way, and that you feel comfortable in the way you are living. Next important thing is that, of course, when it comes to elderly, you need a good healthcare system support so that you can live a life to the full, also when you are becoming older. I think that Chance B, with our social services, is contributing to these 4 dimensions of having a good life. We are offering, for example, in the field of education, a service called School Assistance, where we offer special support for children with disabilities, so they can go to mainstream schools directly in the villages here in Eastern Styria, so that the parents do not have to move in a town when they have a child with a disability, because good services are only offered in towns. We bring the service to the families and to the children so they can stay in the villages, go to the school which is next door, and get the assistance needed, so that also children with disabilities can be part of everyday school life. when it comes to the field of employment, and this is what we are especially talking about in this conference, what we try to develop in the last 30 years is we created social businesses to create employment opportunities for persons with disabilities, but not only for persons with disabilities, also for support staff, for caretakers. In 30 years of Chance B development, now we can say that we are the biggest service provider in the region. We offer 500 jobs for staff and caregivers, and therefore we are a very strong economic factor in our region, in our rural area. And a lot of people coming from the towns next to our region working for Chance B, and not the opposite way, that people move out from the villages to work in the town. When it comes especially to persons with disabilities, especially with mild intellectual disabilities, in Austria at the moment we have the situation that these persons are excluded from the labor market. To earn a living, to have social security, to be a full member of society, this is not possible at the moment for persons with intellectual disabilities. Chance B is fighting on different levels, from European level to regional level, that we change that situation, and that every person has the right to have a meaningful job and is well paid for that. I think therefore we can also fight on European legislation level to make clear that, for example, the new period of funding from the structural funds, ERDF, for example, is linked to that idea that when persons with intellectual disabilities work on a farm, that it is guaranteed that they can have a salary, that they have social security, and that they can fully participate in social and economic life. But what we are doing right now is we accompany the transition from unemployable status to first labor market through giving education to our persons with disabilities, to sensitize farmers, but also companies working in the field of forestry, to show them that persons with intellectual disabilities, if they get the right support from professional staff, can contribute to the farming, the forestry business, and can be a crucial and good workers. This sometimes lead to the fact that people get a salary, that they get a working contract in different companies, but still it is a very long way to go to say that we really have employment for all well established. But I believe that projects like we did in FARMID, where we can show good examples, where we can highlight the chances and also the abilities of persons with disability in contributing to the labor market. I think we go step by step. Hopefully next projects in the next 10 years, we will discuss more about open labor market integration, but I think we have to go one step to the other. Just a few things what we are doing, that housing is possible for everyone in our region. We are offering mobile services for its assisted living, so that every person, also person with intellectual disabilities, can live on their own, in their own flats, in their own houses, close to the places where they work, so that they can be part of the villages or community situation, that they can live there where everybody else lives, so that they do not have to have long ways to their work from maybe big housing for persons with disabilities. So we try to enable them to live where everybody else is living. And I think that's also a very crucial part for the villages, because everybody who can live in a village and can have a good life in a village is of course a person who is not thinking of going to the next city. What we are doing when people become older is we have the same approach. We offer mobile services so that persons with disabilities who become old, but also everyone in the region who comes old, do not have to move out and go to a big house for elderly care, so that they can stay in their apartments, stay in their houses, and get the support they need, so that that also when it comes to age, everybody can still contribute to social life in the villages and do not have to move out. So it's a kind of a complex setting of services we developed the last 30 years. And I think, how is this possible? It is possible because we developed our services not on the scratch. We asked the communities, the responsible persons, the mayors, the other stakeholders in our villages, what do you need? What is missing? What service can we offer so that we can contribute to a good life in the villages? And sometimes the answer was to establish a restaurant, because there is no restaurant in the village anymore. So the people do not have a common meeting place. On another hand, it was maybe that there is a question about housing, and that a housing service is needed, or services in the field of elderly care. So we do not develop our services top down, we develop it bottom up in cooperation with the social and economic environment we are located. I think another point we didn't highlight yet is when it comes to the SDGs, like the colleagues from Italy highlighted, when it comes to a new vision of doing new agricultural businesses, I think there are some basic principles we can maybe follow if we want to further develop our economic system, especially in rural areas. And Jonesby can be an example for that, because we are a social enterprise, which means our mission is not to have the maximum of profit. Our mission is to contribute to the common good. Our owners are not shareholders. Our owners are members of the society in our region. We are reinvesting our profits to further develop our services and to further develop also our social services. We live participatory principles in our company. And of course, we are trying to contribute to the SDGs. So we are trying to have local services, sustainable services, and ecological services. Social farming, but in a broader way, social enterprises can be facilitators for rural community development. They can be a model for successful business development. They can be a part of the local economic cycle, and therefore be crucial for providing livable living spaces, creating employment opportunities, educational opportunities, housing opportunities. And yes, I can say that when we are confronted with all the challenges these days, climatic change, the pandemic situation we are confronted right now, I see that our model of doing business, our social service provider setting, is a setting who is working, who is contributing to the needs of the people. And I think we can be proud that altogether that we can show also other businesses how sustainable economic development can be done. Therefore, I think we should be self-confident in presenting our achievements and our approaches. thank you very much. I hope I was not too long. My colleague said I was too long, but I think it was not maybe too much. I'm very happy if we can go in further discussions, especially on what is necessary on European legislation level, so that we can fulfill our visions and to fulfill our dreams. And yeah, thank you very much for the invitation again and for the setting here in this online environment.
Thank you very much, Michael, for your presentation and showing us the approach of Chance B. And yeah, indeed, social farming can be a really good way to maintain social life in rural areas, especially nowadays. So thank you very much, and thank you to our 3 panelists who gave really interesting and diverse presentations from different parts of Europe. So we're going to move now to the Q&A session. So we received a few questions from the audience. So I will share the questions one by one in the chat so that everyone can see the question. So we had a question to Suzanne, so I will share it right now. A question from Julie Brosnan from the Kerry Social Farming in southwest of Ireland. And she said that you mentioned geographic variations in location in social farms in the Netherlands. Were there any reasons you could find for that variation? And which types of farms, dairy, beef, or litage, sheep, horticulture, are more likely to get involved?
Well, the next part of my study is to really explore that in Northern Ireland, to try and piece together why we have a really strong social farming sector in one area and we have a few other areas who have yet to commission any social farming since our pilot project. I would say that there's a similarity among all of the farms which have ever received funding. They are small family farms which are normally mixed agriculture. 2 examples would be in one area where we have participants who regularly attend. One farm is owned by a former teacher and her husband, who is a part-time farmer and also works for the civil service. They have sheep and also polytunnels and gardens that they work in. And the other, which was one of the first, was a farm run by a former occupational therapist who has, she breeds cattle and she also has horses. So I think most of our farms, the main common factor between them is that the farmer has a really strong altruistic tendency. They have a connection to someone who could use a social farm either in their personal life or through work. They really understand how beneficial it could be. But I think the main reason why some farms have been able to achieve sustainable funding is that within the health service in their area, they have had someone who also equally understands the benefits. It really seems to be related to having a champion within the service who makes sure that people attend, make sure that people have the opportunity. So I'm going to try and look at the barriers, why in certain areas they haven't been able to achieve any sustainable funding, and then to look at best practice where it has happened, what it is about those situations, because I think it might also be to do with distance between day centres and farms. There's certainly always been transport problems, so I think that might have something to do with it. At the minute, I'm guessing. I think also it's mainly that our health trust areas do not communicate. So in one area, we have a really strong interest in social farming. We have a few participants who have regular attendance at farms, but yet they can't seem to pass that message to our other areas who potentially will have participants. I think another issue might be that our health services don't recognise the speciality of a social farm. So they may have polytunnels at their day centres and they think, but we have the same service as a social farm. Why would I send my participants to somewhere I'm not sure about the risk to their safety when they can plant vegetables here? So it's really explaining that there's a lot more to it than just maybe planting in a polytunnel. There's a full environment which is really conducive to well-being. So I think it's more about that than the actual individual farms. It looks like it could work in many different setups, and that was actually found in the literature. some of the farms that worked very well and were much larger farms than would be in Northern Ireland, with hundreds of dairy cattle being milked, which is something we haven't looked at yet in Northern Ireland, larger farms. But I think it definitely could work across areas, but it really depends on your partnership with the health service in our context so far. Hopefully by next year I will know the answer and I can tell you all what the secret ingredient is to make it work wherever you might be, but that's to come.
And do you have an answer regarding which types of farms are more likely to get involved?
It looks like farms here that have got involved would be very small, with only a small number of hectares. It's family farms with one person running the farm and maybe another family member part-time working on the farm. It doesn't seem to be associated with one particular type of farming. It looks like, depending on the area, that it can work with different types.
Okay, thank you. And I want to say, if any other speaker has something to add, do not hesitate to take the mic. And yeah, Ilaria?
Okay, thank you. Okay, that was mute. I just want to make a consideration concerning those elements that can, being pushing factor for developing social farming. We need to prepare also the local community, also social farming is a mix of competencies. There is the social farmer, there is the agriculture, there are the educational sector. What is important to create this space where all this background, a professional, can get a seat together and start discussing. It's there that we can find the innovation, because it's not just the addition of the single professionality background, it's more. And then you can find a new solution. For example, in our shared laboratories, which is a greenhouse, in that place you will have the educators. Okay, so it's social worker, and then there is the agronomist, which is the one preparing the job. Then the two need to sit together and work on that. That's what I'm saying. We need to prepare also the background for social farming to grow, which means also that the politics need to be ready for that. We cannot work like the knowledge. We cannot have silos, separate specialized sector. They need to be they need to interact with each other, and there we can find new solutions. That's what happened on the ground, and I can tell you that it's very difficult to promote social farming if we don't create this humus, let's say, where she can flourish. For example, politics, they need to be integrated, and also the funding should be integrated, because it's a matter of social health service and economy and agriculture. So if we need to push in the same direction, means that we need to know where we are going. Okay, and something very difficult, because I've been doing this for a long time. As I said in similar concept, maybe I've been like a spider woman and try to put things together, because it was very difficult at the beginning to understand why a social farmer should speak with a social assistant. Wait a minute, okay. Why a social service should see a greenhouse as an opportunity and not just a place where they can, hurt themselves or doing something wrong. It's totally to change the perspective. And it's not easy. Maybe on the ground is easier, because the experience on the ground go faster below, and they need to find solution, because we are dealing with the needs of people. Okay, needs of people and also the farmer, because this is a great opportunity for small farmer as well to be sustainable. But at the same time, it's very difficult to put all these components that should break down together, talk and make a strategy, a common strategy.
Thank you, Ilaria. So we have a new question. So hi, Suzanne, thank you. Do you have any information about the professional profiles? In concrete, I'm interested in occupational therapist participation in social farming or care farm. And then she would like to know the same for Italy. So maybe Suzanne and then Ilaria.
Just looking to see if I can see the question.
It is in the chat.
Oh yeah. Let me see.
So it's about the professional profiles.
Okay. Oh yes,
Maybe
I can see now.
Or maybe Ilaria, you can give us.
Yeah, I'll just take a few minutes so I can then pass the floor to Susan.
Yeah.
As you know, in Italy, we got the legislative framework. So we need, first of all, we need to make a distinction. Social farming requires specific professionality because we are a farm and at the same time we are a social service. But for example, the agronomist working with our workers and people on the land, on the wine cellar, on the shops, they need to have some basic fundamental knowledge concerning how to deal with it. At the same time, we got the educators, because each one of us should have their own professionalities. Me, I'm talking about the tutors of working fragile people. I mean, we need someone that is able to facilitate the autonomy of people. You know, it's extremely important to look at the person and say, okay, this is your limits, because we know we are dealing with people that sometimes have got a lot of limits, but at the same time, this is your potential, and this is the way how you can express this. And of course, as I said before, the professionalities should be very specific, but at the same time, for example, I'm looking at, he would like to work as a occupational therapist participation. In that case, you need to, according to me, to add to your knowledge, to your study and professional background, further knowledge concerning social farming. For example, which are the networks that are dealing with the process of social farming. You need to have other skills that then will support you also to make this process sustainable. Because, of course, some of them are directly employees by the farmer or social cooperative. Some other, they will get inside the farmer with the social project. In that case, and you know that when you are dealing with people that have mental disability, we need to guarantee also a continuity, you know, a continuation of the process. So what I'm saying, you need to have some kind of extra knowledge if you are coming from the social sector. For example, in Italy, we are doing trainings for, let's say, tutor of the job activity for mental disabled people, which are where there are people attending from. There are farmers, there are social workers, there are people coming from the health sectors, because in that case, you can create also a network of professionalities and that can start talking each other. But in our farm, we got psychologists, we got the educators, we got volunteers, there is the farmers, the agronomists, so all the professionals that, but they need to then create some kind of mix, you know. Mm-hmm. Still, we don't have a professional figure recognized by the law. We are discussing this at the national level now, and we create a curriculum as well within an international project, which is an Erasmus Plus. But I think that each country has their own specificity according also to the social service and agricultural sector. So it's a mix. In a social farm, you can find really everything. And then we will discuss how we can employ a psychologist in a farm. This is a second step discussion.
Yeah, thank you. And Suzanne, do you have something to add maybe on this topic?
Yeah, just to say in terms of the literature that was found and what types of people were working on the farms that I've looked at, it was very poorly reported. We don't know from the literature what type of background the farmer had, or if they had other people working on the farm with them. There wasn't really much to tell you about that. I think it's to do with word count in an academic world. There's no space to give any additional details other than the results. And as well, in Northern Ireland, mostly occupational therapists' role regarding social farming would be possibly being part of the referral chain for an individual person. So the role of the social farming services here would be to try and promote the services of social farms at different levels of our health service to different groups of professionals. So it would be towards occupational therapists, also social workers and carers at different levels, also at the top of our disability services or our community services. So an occupational therapist forms part of that referral process, where if they know about social farming, they might be able to make a case for someone to attend. But I know there's an occupational therapy student in Northern Ireland who is conducting research from that perspective, but it's hard to say from the literature what their involvement is. But you can see there's an obvious crossover with what happens on a social farm and what an occupational therapist does. So I think it would be interesting to see their perspective more.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So we have a new question. What are the key aspects of digital technologies that are important for social farming? So maybe Michael, you would like to answer that question? On the digital technologies.
What we implemented, also we are also running a farm close to the place we are living, and what we implemented, especially also in the times of the Corona crisis, when it comes to digital technologies, that's the question, was on the one hand, we had to do some professionalization of our offers, because usually in the rural areas we are offering our products in a very traditional way, putting it to the farm markets which are close to our farm, or we deliver it to restaurants. And now in Corona crisis, everything was shut down. So we had to find new ways of delivering our products to the people. And of course, this is an aspect of digital technology where we used other forms of communication established in the company to transfer it to the farm and to give the opportunity for the farmers there to promote their products and also their services, because we were not only offering the products from our farm, we also offered support in gardening for persons. So we sold our expertise, because in Austria in the times of crisis everybody was at home and wanted to renew the garden and to make new things in the garden, but they didn't know exactly how to do, and so we offered them support and assistance. So I think this is one part, but what I want to highlight, what is very important for us is our social farm is also a training place for persons with disabilities, where they can train their competencies, further develop their abilities and their knowledge. And we started a project related to the European qualification framework, where we monitor and highlight the competencies our workers on the farm are developing related to the standards of the European qualification framework, because we see our farm not as a place where people should stay and work for the rest of their lives. We see our farm as a training place, because what at the moment what I mentioned is that in Austria we cannot offer them good employment opportunities, we cannot offer them a salary. So our idea is to qualify the persons with disabilities, that they can have the next step towards open labor market, find a job on another farm, but the farmer will ask us, but what is the person able to do? What can he, what are his skills? And so we developed that qualification tool. And this tool, for example, is an online tool. So our support workers on the farm, also our colleagues on the farm, they use the app we developed in the project to reflect their own skills and competencies. So I think it's not it is a good thing to see that the people work on the farm, do the green business, but at the same time have a tablet, an Android, a smartphone, and work on the smartphone in parallel. So I think yeah, that's maybe two ideas of the question of digital technology in this field.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah. So we have another question. Hello, I'm an occupational therapist from Spain. I'm also studying permaculture. I'm very interested in social farming, but we don't have this model in Spain. And I think this applies to many countries and not only Spain, so it's really interesting. I would like to know if you have found permaculture practices in social farming. And I also would like to have some advice about starting research like occupational therapists to start care farm in Spain. Thank you. So I think it's a very interesting questions on how to implement social farming in other countries. And yeah, so I don't know who wants to answer that question.
Just an information to share with a colleague from Spain. I'm saying we are working together with a social cooperative that is dealing with mental disabled people in Spain, is Olivera, And we'll send the link in the chat, so maybe you can have a look there. They are producing wine, and they also join international awards that we promoted for the social wine in Europe. We call Sorsi Solidali in Italian, and I think they were the first one. They got the awards because the wine is amazing, and they're working with mental disabled people in that farms. Like in our farm, there is a mix of background, the professional studies, a professional background. There is the agronomist, there is the person in charge of the wine cellar, but together with him is working and educators. So it's a mix like here. Of course, maybe it's like in Italy at the first stage, you don't know that there are a lot of experiences of social farming, but they are moving on the ground, already answering the question of the needs coming from the local community. So it's more a matter of having a clear idea, picture from of the numbers, and also what social farming is. Because we got a definition, we know what we can, what we are looking for, but I don't know, maybe in Spain, but this is amazing experiences that I will advise our colleague to go and see.
And regarding on how to start a care farm, where to find information to form yourself to be an occupational therapist, does anyone have some advice to give to that person on how to start a care farm, where to find information?
Looking at Abai, you go.
Oh, just quickly, I'm aware that there are colleagues in our social farming support service in Northern Ireland who are involved in a project called So Engage, which is another project similar to this with a range of countries. And I know Spain is involved in that one in developing the concept of social farming there. So I think if they're on Twitter, they have a web page. It's just called So Engage. And if you put that in with social farming, it might provide some general information about who's already involved in Spain and who might be useful to talk to, who's already developing that perspective. But potentially,
okay, maybe you can share the link in the chat, and
I
will share it with everyone. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and about permaculture, I don't know.
Maybe just a sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, just a sentence maybe. What we said is that what Ilaria said is it has to be working together or coming from the community of different approaches. And when we started our farm 20 years ago, there was no legal framework for running a social farm. Simply, we started it because we said, okay, there is a farm, there are social services. Nobody says we are allowed to do it on the farm. So we integrated different aspects and make a mix and designed the social farming on our own. I think that's very challenging, and I think Ilaria is what you wanted to highlight is that it's not an easy way to do it because there are so many different actors and stakeholders you have to involve, but it's worth the way going it. So I just want to encourage the colleague from Spain just to find the group of people who are innovative, who want to change something, and then just do it. But on the other hand, European Union legislation, European Union frameworks, like the criteria for funding from a European Regional Development Fund, there is an opportunity to reserve money for projects like developing a social farming in Spain. If we could convince the Commission that reserving special funding for projects like the colleague in Spain wants to establish, this can be a motor and a boost for social farming all across Europe, and hopefully that Commission for the next funding period will take this into consideration, and we can have a project together, maybe share some experience from Spain, from Italy, from Northern Ireland, but maybe not from Northern Ireland, Suzanne, I'm so sorry, but you know what is going on, Brexit and so on. I think maybe this would be worth to state. And if you have any chances for your local responsibility persons, you know, politicians who have friends in the European Parliament, and if you bring that idea to these local politicians so they can move it on to European level, I think it's worth the action, that we get better frameworks in future for developing our ideas of social farming.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to talk about the European level. Yeah, Anna, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we had some examples from Spain as well, because well, not actually social farming, but definitely employing people with intellectual disabilities on farms. And you can check out the Spanish National Report. I think it's available online, which is also in Spain, available in Spanish, so you can check it out. We found some good practices or good cooperations that can lead to social establishment of social farms. So you can maybe also turn to our Spanish partner, COAC Jaén, because they did research on that, and I think that they can help you with some information, even though they might not be from your region. So
yeah, thank you, Anna. So let's see if we have, maybe we can answer one last question. So someone was, I will share the question. Someone was wondering if maybe those practices would, in the end, marginalize even more the people who have mild intellectual disabilities. So the question was is there a danger by focusing on ability, activation, and employment that very vulnerable people with more challenging behaviors will be further marginalized?
I will make a question, why?
We hear you?
No, my question was why this question, because of course, so in the social farm, we are dealing with it. Our main concern is that we can go through an institutional, let's say, we can repeat the same mistake. You know, what was happening before without inside the building with the everyday activities of mental disabled people, this can happen into a farm. That's why what is important is the integration of mental disabled people within the activities. Even if we have a very severe condition, try to think how important is just to feed the plant, the animal, or give water to the plant. It's extremely important. In that way, the person, even if he has a lot of limits, can be totally integrated into the context of the farm. And this is the challenge. You know, it's not just to move a service from a close place to the farm. In that case, we are not talking about social farming. We are talking about therapeutical green care. We can talk. We can call in another way, but social farming means that there should be an agricultural activity, and the people are integrating that. Think about the shelter laboratories. Even if it's a laboratories, is producing plants that we are selling in the shop. It's not just producing the plants that maybe you can take back to your mom. No. They can see that plant, they will go to the shop, they will be sold. That's what I'm saying. Even if they have very strong or severe condition, we can find a place, an activity very simple for him or for her to be integrated into the daily life of the farm. Of course, we need to avoid what is in this question, and I'm also expressing my concern for the next year. Now, social farming is not well known. Now there are no money about that. So who is doing social farming is doing because I strongly believe in that. I'm talking from a country that has long-term experiences with the law. So let's look in the future, and that will be the great challenge. Like most of the people that they are farmers and they're doing that, they are doing because they got a vision. Maybe in 2 years they do that because it's just a diversification of income. So the motivation and the relationship with the people is the main aspect. No separate activity, but activity integrated in the farm, even if it's just to feed the animals or give water to the plant.
Thank you, Ilaria. And so to finish this Q&A session, I would maybe like to go back to the European aspects. As FARMID is a European project, I would like to have your input on what is necessary at the EU level, what can be done, what should be promoted and developed. So maybe shortly each speaker could give some ideas on this topic. So I don't know who wants to start. Maybe Suzanne?
Okay. Yeah, I would say this is less my area of expertise so far. I have led less working with this aspect of it yet, but again, I think it's about presenting a cohesive case and having that strong evidence base so that we can easily compare what social farmers do with other services. But again, it's not unfortunately not really been my area yet to have anything to do with the EU, especially since we will not be part of it for much longer officially. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens after that too.
Maybe I can say something because as a social farming national forum, we started the process at European Union. First of all, so we got in touch with the other national network of social farming, because different countries, they already have a national network. I think about Germany, they got 2 national networks. I'm thinking about Hungary, I'm thinking about Belgium, and so on. So the first thing is to put together this network or the organization that they're dealing with that to lobby, because social farming is not yet recognized. Maybe somewhere in the new pack you can say social inclusion, but it's not recognized as a transactional practice that need also to be understood in a complex framework. It's not just agriculture, otherwise they will, we need to make an integration of that. Of course, the new PAC and the new generation, especially now in this post-pandemic world, has to recognize social farming, because now we are talking about something that is clear in front of our eyes. We need to create a welfare of proximity, but not only in the big town, also in the rural area. And this is a great chance also to give farm a possibility to be sustainable, because close to the production, there will be also the didactic farm. Think about the integration that now we can do with school, with the problem with COVID, and the role that the social farming may play in this context. So we need that the European Commission understand the potential of social farming from many different perspectives: economic, social, cultural, because we cannot talk about changing Europe and new value if we don't make practice of it. And if this value are not able to give you a job and also an income. So it's important that we show that this context, this kind of activities are win-to-win process. You will invest 1, you will get 10. But this is up to us. We are now creating a narrative on that. It's up to us also to feel the need to bring together, create, for example, a European platform for social farming. We need to get together. That's my suggestion.
And maybe Michael and Anna. Anna?
Yeah, and definitely, I think we really have to learn from each other, because we have so many different stories, different examples of good practices, and I think that this is very important to enable to connect and to learn from each other, and also I think Europe has to recognize the importance, and our countries have to recognize the importance of this, not only to finance pilot projects like this one or many others, but to give constant support for these activities, because it's hard to have these social farming activities to be profitable by itself. The profits are everywhere else but in money. And I think that also it's very important for me is that really we try to find employment to those who are able to get employment. So to those who are capable to that point that they can get real jobs. So this is one of the things that I would like to stress out.
And Michael, maybe to finish here.
And I think a first step towards being more recognized on European level can be that the social farming initiatives in Europe and the umbrella organizations who are already existing maybe come into contact with other umbrella organizations on European level, so to maybe share common goals and ideas. I'm part of the ESPD network, the European Association of Social Service Providers in Europe. Maybe Juliette, you can provide the link to the audience. As I said, beginning of July, I have the opportunity to talk to the DG of Agriculture, the part of the Commission responsible for the agricultural development in European Union, and to talk about rural development. On ESPD homepage, there is the link to the webinar. It's free for everybody to join, and it's on 1st July. So maybe if you want to go there and and join the seminar, you can maybe see how the Commission at the moment is looking at rural development and social services. And I want to invite you that if you want to get organized, get in contact with each other, also on European level, I can be the door opener to the European Association of Social Service Providers. We have different fields of activities. We are working on education, employment, early intervention, arts and culture, but we are not working at the moment focusing on social farming. But maybe this can be a topic for the future, to also have a focus on that. And I really want to invite you all to cooperate on European level, that we join our forces and to further develop European Union in a more social way.
Thank you, Michael. So that's it. That's the end of our conference. I would like to thank our guests very much, because you gave us very fruitful information and the discussions were very interesting. I hope that we also give you a good overview of our project FARMID and the results that we've obtained. So please do not hesitate to share our training platform with anyone who would be interested. After this webinar, you will receive an email with the recording of this webinar, as well as a link to our platform and a survey to fill. I will also ask our speakers to send me all the links that you mentioned, so that I can share it with the participants. Again, a final big thank you to all our speakers and to our audience online for joining us this morning, and have a great afternoon. Bye.